Maine, a place known for its many lakes, streams, and ponds, its long list of beautiful wildlife, and miles of back road through dense forest without a block of civilization around. Join me as I show you what this great state has to offer. From foraging to fishing and wildlife conservation, we'll do it all. I live my life loving everything nature has to provide here. Stick around, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two. At the very least, I hope you enjoy following along. Welcome to Wild Maine. Welcome to Wild Maine, episode 9. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some spring foraging. And of course, we're going to talk about a staple here in Maine, a delicacy, fiddleheads. So sit tight, learn a couple things. We're not going to go crazy in depth, but I'll show you a couple things that you can pick up and eat if you needed to in a survival situation, or maybe you want something special in your salad. Anyway, stay tuned, check out what we got, and we'll have a little bit of wildlife on there too. So I'm out at the Fiddlehead patch, second one of the season. It's my later spot, and along the way I always like to check a couple trees because I'm a mushroom lover, and early in the season you got a couple that you can go after. Of course, you got the famous morels that everybody goes all buku about. I've yet to actually find any of those, but down here at my later Fiddlehead patch, I've always got a couple trees that I like to check because they're the host to a great mushroom that I like to eat. Just checked the first one, had a huge bounty on it. My bad, didn't have the camera rolling. But tree number 2. So here we have what is called a pheasant back mushroom. Now it's called a pheasant back mushroom because the back of it looks like it's got all kinds of feathers on it, resembling a pheasant back. Now to harvest them, you take your knife, just gonna gently cut. You don't want to go too close to the tree because you want them growing back next year, and anything super close to the tree is going to be very tough. Now, if you look at the underside, you can see the spores have opened up quite a bit. Generally, that means it's going to be a little bit tougher. So you can't always go based on size. I mean, you'll have some that are that size, and they'll be completely white. No big holes on the bottom of it, meaning that it's still going to be really tender. Now, this one's feeling all right, so I'm still going to take it. Check out the second one. I can feel it's definitely a little bit tougher, but you can still use the edges of it. If you slice them good and thin, they'll be all right. See, you can see on that one, they've really opened up. But out towards the edges, it'll be a little more tender. You can still eat all that. And as long as you slice it good and thin, you can fry it up and it'll be all right. Almost to the third tree, and I just thought of something. With these pheasant backs, dryad saddle is the official name. Don't even get me started on Latin because I'm not one of those freaks. But it's a great starter mushroom because it's early in the season. There's not a lot of mushrooms popping out, and there's nothing really to confuse it with. Another great indicator to know that you've got pheasant back mushroom is if you smell it. It smells real sweet. Like Tennessee whiskey. Just kidding. No, it's sweet, but it smells exactly like a watermelon rind. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It smells just like you cut open a fresh watermelon, and it smells like the rind part of it. Anyway, we're coming up on the next tree. It's right around the corner here. See if we got anything. Tell you, it's not looking too good for my fiddlehead patch. It looks like Might be just about gone by. But look at this. This one has flushed and then some. Last year this had 4 or 5 on it. Now it's got about 20 of them. So I'm gonna harvest these and go take a look at the fiddleheads. Heading down the river to check out the fiddleheads still, and just spooked a duck out of the grass. Check this out. You got this little hole in this mound of grass, I guess you could say. Down inside, got a nice little nest of eggs. We'll leave it undisturbed. Keep on moving along. That duck will be lucky if an otter doesn't get up into that, because there's all kinds of them here. Way too many. But we're just about down to the spot where I like to pick the fiddleheads. See what's popping. So coming up to the fiddlehead patch, and it's not looking good. We went from being 2 weeks behind to the season blew by in no time at all. Because unfortunately, we got a ton of heat. And it just kicked everything into overdrive. Well, you see all these tall ferns here, that's all fiddleheads that have grown up. We might be done picking fiddleheads in a few short days, instead of a couple weeks as I had hoped. Then I'll check under the tree cover and see if there's any in here that have stalled. But it's not looking good. See, I'm usually here to pick all of these. There's a couple over here that are good. So there you go, there's a couple fiddleheads. A couple more right here. Might be able to get a few. But it's not looking good. So I moved on from that fiddlehead spot because unfortunately it's pretty well gone by. Wasn't worth me walking a mile back down in there to try to get half a bucket or so. So I went back to the spot that I've been picking for the past couple weeks. Gonna get as many as I can here because it looks like I only have a couple days left. The season's been nuts. So I mean, normally the fiddlehead season will go all of May for me anyway, and then into June, because of how I have my spots stacked up. But this year, the season was a week behind to start because it was so cold up here. And then we got a massive heat wave getting up into the 80s and 90s. So it really pushed things into overdrive. And even up north, I texted my buddy earlier. He says they're just about gone by up there too. So it's gonna be a fun season. Now for those of you that don't know what a fiddlehead is, one, get educated. If you haven't had fiddleheads, you're really missing out. Now, a fiddlehead is a kind of fern. Now, some people call other kinds of ferns fiddleheads. Don't listen to them. They're wrong. There's only really one kind of fiddlehead, and that is the ostrich fern. Now up here in Maine, this is what we really classify as the beginning of spring. once you have fiddleheads popping, spring has officially begun. What you tell a fiddlehead is the first thing you see is stupid skeeter. You got that really deep U going up through the stalk. It's not a little indent, not one that you just got a little impression. No, it looks like celery. Like the bottom of that looks like celery. The next thing is you got tightly packed leaves in there, and there's a lot of them. I mean, it's pretty thick. That's about the size of a $50. Pretty good size to it. They grow out of the ground in these clusters, out of what I call a knuckle or a crown. And you'll usually have a handful of them growing together. Now it's important to note, you got that paper wrapper that's on them. It's gonna be brown, not black, not furry. It's gonna be a papery brown color. To pick fiddleheads, you wanna find the ones that are still wrapped up tight. So probably not too much taller than this one here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna grab it on the base and snap. You don't want to pull it up and out because it'll ruin the plant. It'll kill it, and then you won't have them growing back next year. So you'll pick a few of them. Just got 4 right there, and we're going to leave 1 to keep the plant glowing for next year. And we'll move on to the next one and do that throughout the patch. We've got a loon friend out here. Every day that I'm down at the patch, he's always been out fishing. Not too long ago, he actually had a monster brook trout that he pulled up. Swallowed it whole. Couldn't believe it. Apparently the bugs are bugging him too. Pun intended. So I'm taking a break from picking real quick. Stretching the legs, walking around. Gonna see if I can't find anything else edible that we could take a look at. Right in here. So here, these are what grown up fiddleheads look like. Those are about 4 feet tall. So hiding in amongst them. Right here we have what is called a trout lily. Now these leaves, when really young, are edible, and you can throw them in a salad. They're pretty tasty. Once they get to this size, they're a little bit bitter. Nothing that I really enjoy. But you can eat the whole plant. You can eat the leaves. You can eat the root. The root's kind of bland if you ask me. Then you got this flower here, which I actually sell these to a local restaurant in Bar Harbor that uses them on some pretty fantastic dishes. But while you're out and about, if you happen to see any of these flowers, just toss them in your mouth. And it's a great flavor to it. Mild with a decent sweetness to it from the nectar. But let's see if we can find anything else. So here we have something that you may even have in your backyard. Here we have one of the most invasive plants you can find anywhere. Japanese knotweed. So when I was a kid, we used to have this stuff next door, and it pretty much took up the whole field. What we'd do is we'd break it all down and make tunnels throughout it, because once it grows up and gets good and thick, I mean, they're still pretty young right now. They're only about 4.5 feet tall at most, but they'll get really thick. And we used to make mazes in them and forts, and we'd have so much fun. These sections here resemble bamboo, and that's actually what we would call it when we were kids, was bamboo. These sections actually will have water in them in the summertime, and they contain a lot of good nutrients in them that you can consume. Really good for you. It's got a decent taste to it. It's a little sour, but it's not too bad. So why am I pointing out this knotweed? Well, what you can do, pop it. That was actually perfect. I'm pretty proud of that. It's almost like popping a good cold beer. Pop it off at the base when it's good and tender still. So you want to keep it under about a foot, and you can actually eat it. Now, if you've ever had rhubarb, it tastes pretty similar to it. It's got a good sourness, pretty refreshing. I've actually made some fermented pickles out of it recently. Delicious. And again, that restaurant that I deal with actually made an awesome dish with this stuff in it. Blew me right away. But something that a lot of people don't realize you can munch on when you're out in the wild, or make something nice while you're at home. So again, that's Japanese knotweed. Here's another plant that we have out here that's edible. And this is a kind of cress. I believe it's Wintercress. And it can be used in many ways. You can boil and eat the flower heads before they turn into actual flowers. I've never done it, but some people say it's a lot like spinach. The leaves can be used when smaller, when the plant's still younger, and added to salad. So obviously you can eat them raw. Let me give you a little rundown on what this is like, because I don't quite remember. So here we've got a cress leaf. Sorry about that, mosquitoes biting my finger. I'm gonna pop it in the mouth and see what we think. So it's almost kind of got like a radishy bite to it. Really pleasant flavor. I might want to start eating that a little bit more. But that's a cress, and I'd give it a recommendation. So I've decided actually that now I kind of want to do the same thing with the flower head. I mean, you can eat raw broccoli. First thing first, do not try this at home. Don't just go eating random stuff. I'm a trained professional. So I'm going to do this, give you guys a little feedback, and we'll see what it's like. So again, here's the cress plant. Got the top head there. Looks a lot like broccoli. Here we go. And even raw, kind of has a broccoli taste to it with a good good radish bite finish. That's really good. So here's something I can almost guarantee you've got growing in or near your yard if you live in Maine. Not a lot of people know that it's edible. It doesn't have a ton of uses other than it looks good, and you can make a kind of simple syrup out of it. But here we have a violet, named after its color, of course, or is the color named after it? Anyway, it's an edible plant. You can use the young leaves in salads when it's younger, and the flowers you can eat if you wanted to. They don't have a lot of flavor, or they're good decoration on dishes, or like I said, it's made into a good syrup. So here we have a plant that is both medicinal and edible. Now, me personally, not big on the edible part of it. To me, it's a lot like dandelion green, which some people absolutely love, but to me it's bitter. But one thing that is great about it is you can take the leaf and chew it up, and again, don't chew too much, because you're probably gonna not like the bitterness unless you're one of those weirdos that does. And this is very good for an area like this and today, because I'm being chewed up by bugs. So again, you can chew it up, and make a little wad of chewed up leaf. It's still sitting in my mouth. And you can apply that to bug bites. And what it does is it actually extracts the stuff that makes you all itchy. So what's it called? Plantain. And not to be confused with plantains you get at the store. You know, the ones that look like bananas. Two completely different plants, obviously. One's tropical and one's up here in freaking Maine. But regardless, if you were in a survival situation, very good for you, very nutritious, and has a bunch of different things that you can use it for. Here we have one of my favorite spring edibles. Now, when handling this, it is very important to wear gloves. And that's because you see those spikes there on the stem and the leaf stems? Whatever the hell those are called. Those will sting you, which gives it its aptly named name, stinging nettle. Now, I'm pretty dumb, so from time to time I will not wear gloves and grab them, and I almost always regret it because, as I said, they sting, and the sting feels just like a bee sting. Hurts a little bit, not too nice. Oh, and then it injects stuff in the makes you itch. Some people it'll last up to 24 hours. Luckily it only lasts for like 20 minutes on me. Damn mosquito. But anyway, this is one of my favorite springtime edibles, and that is just recently a thing. This has so many different uses. You can, well, essentially just use it like spinach. The only thing is you do not want to eat it raw, and that's because of those little sharp stingers. But it's great steamed. I love it steamed. You can saute it. My buddy, the chef there, he makes a nettle pesto. I think that's how you say it. Pesto, pisto. He spells it funny, so I don't know if it's pisto or pesto. Regardless, it's freaking delicious. But in a survival situation, say it came to that, you can take this, ball it up pretty good. Like, you really want to roll it up good. Get it all broken down. Like, if I wasn't using my other hand, I'd actually roll it between my two hands right now too. And then you can eat it. And this is one of the most nutritional wild greens that you can find. It just is a plus that it tastes good. If you're harvesting these nettles, for whatever reason, say you've 100% ID'd them, you're good to go, cool. If you're just looking to explore, you want to try to learn different things, which is what I highly recommend, because you should only eat something if you know 100% what it is. But to help you identify it, as I said, you got the stingers on there. Another thing is you got the leaves that come off the stem at the same spots all the way up. So you're going to have two at every joint. On the top, you got a little cross section here. Now the leaves are going to alternate going down. So you got two pointing up and down, and the next two are pointing left and right. The next two are going to point up and down. Next two are going to point left and right. So that, plus the stingers, means you pretty much got it down. Because there are some lookalikes out there, and one of them is actually poisonous. So you really have to make sure that you got the stingers, wear gloves, and just make sure you know what you're doing. So that's going to do it for this episode of Wild Maine. If you haven't, again, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Hopefully you enjoyed what you see, and you'll come back for more. Till next time.